The intent, if there was intent, behind the 3 tweets by comedy writer Graham Linehan, recently arrested and bailed, is up for debate. According to the man himself, one of the 3 messages posted on X read, quote, "If a trans-identified male is in a female-only space, he is committing a violent, abusive act. Make a scene, call the cops, and if all else fails, punch him in the balls." Close quote. On arrival at Heathrow Airport this week, back from the state of Arizona in the United States of America, he was arrested by 5 officers of the MPS Aviation Unit. They were armed, as is routine for such officers, and their weapons were not drawn at any point. The writer was subsequently bailed after being taken to hospital for treatment for high blood pressure. What is undeniable is that the arrest drew comment from all over. Elon Musk, owner of the platform that carried the writer's posts, responded to the arrest from across the pond, describing Britain as, quote, "a police state." Author J.K. Rowling, who has also been outspoken and for years now on the subject of trans and men using women's spaces like toilets and changing rooms, speculated about what Britain has become. I say you can adopt whatever position you want about the trans debate, from activist either way to not giving a toss. What interests me, what makes my hackles rise, is how others in the wider world have begun to see us, have begun to perceive, understand and describe Britain. Give a dog a bad name and all that. United States Vice President J.D. Vance is on record saying he watched what happened in his own country under the last Biden administration. Quote, "I just don't want other countries to follow us down what I think was a very dark path under the Biden administration." Close quote. Now, we just watched the Trump administration go through the motions of detaining and threatening with deportation a mature student at Columbia University over his pro-Palestine activism. And last month, an Israeli government official charged with trying to have sex with a 15-year-old girl in Las Vegas was able to leave the United States and return home to Israel. My point is that I'm hardly holding up the US as a paragon of virtue, the same US that is supporting the unfolding horror in Gaza. My point is that it surely says something when dear old Britain, the country in which I grew up assured by messaging that we here lived in a veritable utopia of fairness, equality before the law, freedom of speech. It surely says something when dear old Britain is being singled out and described from that other side of the Atlantic Ocean as a police state, a state hurtling down a path to a quote-unquote dark place. The scary evidence is undeniable. I will admit I now regard all of the authorities in this country, the police, the judiciary, the civil service, and absolutely the so-called government with unalloyed suspicion. I don't look to any of them in hope of help. On the contrary, I hear mention of any of them and feel the sense of potential threat.
Hello, I'm Bev Turner. Now, it can feel like the money in our bank accounts at the moment does not keep up with the cost of living, and maybe there's a solution. I'm here today with the CEO of TallyMoney, Cameron Parry. Cameron, what is TallyMoney?
Well, Bev, with TallyMoney, you get a current account and a debit card, but instead of pounds, you use milligrams of gold as your everyday money.
So why gold?
Gold traditionally is a great store of value. It has, on average, gone up at over 11% per annum for the last 25 years against the pound. It's tripled in value in the last decade, and in the last 2 years alone, it's increased by 50% against the pound. Banks' savings products just can't compete with that level of growth.
But this isn't just about gold. This is about a currency that you guys have created at TallyMoney. Explain it to me as though I'm an idiot.
So, look, people need to be able to hold their earnings and build their savings in a money that retains its value and remains in their legal control and remains theirs to access, away from government control.
Great. You had me at not exposed to government control.
You should feel safe and happy with your money. You should have peace of mind the more money you see in your bank balance, and that's the type of thing we're trying to deliver and give people choice in the type of money they get to use every day.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Cameron. Thank you.
I never imagined I would live to get to this point in this country. I now say out loud that we have no democracy in this country, that perhaps we never did, and I mean it sincerely. That the so-called authorities are so threatened by what the citizenry are saying that they have to seek to frighten dissenters and would-be dissenters from the official narrative into silence is plain to see. The empty vessel that is Prime Minister Keir Starmer keeps mouthing sentiments about the UK being a country with a proud history of free speech. But increasingly, history is the right word. The British tradition of free speech is going over the hill into history. Journalist and peer Toby Young's Free Speech Union has collated figures of those Brits arrested, otherwise detained, or charged, convicted and jailed for social media posts. In 2023, officers from 37 forces arrested 12,183 people for stuff they put up on Facebook or whatever. That's more than 30 arrests every day, all of them in relation to Section 127 of the Communications Act 2003 and Section 1 of the Malicious Communications Act of 1988, making it illegal to cause distress by sending grossly offensive messages or causing annoyance, inconvenience, or anxiety to others via the internet, telephone, or mail. And who are the arbiters of annoyance and anxiety? Who gets to decide what's offensive and what's not? Answer: the same people drafting or enforcing the legislation. In a Britain increasingly without trial by jury, the loop is almost closed. The people having no means to judge the justice of the legislation forced upon them. Undoubtedly, the official clampdown on freedom comes from official fear of the internet. That genie won't be going back in the lamp. And so the would-be totalitarians have nothing but silencing and censorship. To get back to Graham Linehan and his arrest, who now remembers that policing in Britain was, and I stress was, unique in the world? Brits used to look on at police elsewhere, throughout Europe, in South American dictatorships, even in the US, and count their lucky stars. While others elsewhere saw the police coming and sought to cross the road, get out of the way, get out of sight, for fear of some or other mistreatment, we Brits told ourselves we were uniquely policed by consent, and that our police service being the operative word in contrast to policing by force or coercion, was unlike any other in the world, on account of conduct that secured trust, respect, even affection from the public. As kids, we were told, if in doubt, if you're frightened, find a policeman. Those days are rapidly receding in a Britain in which child rape is routine and official blind eyes turned to most of it, where knife crime is endemic, in the cities at least, where burglary and other robbery is regarded as hardly worth reporting. In a Britain where, in that context, people are arrested and face jail for social media posts. The case of Lucy Connolly has become an international example, quoted the world over, on account of her sentence having exceeded those handed out to child rapists and other violent offenders convicted around the same time. I say again, take any stance, or no stance at all, in relation to the trans controversy, in relation to the plight of someone like Graham Linehan. But do consider how it undoubtedly matters how this country of ours is viewed by others. Regular Americans, beset by all their concerns about the state of their nation, are presently comforting themselves that at least they don't live in Britain. Imagine that. It matters because image is critical for all sorts of reasons. At the same time that others around the world are learning to see Britain as a police state in the making, where child rapists run free while young mums do time behind bars for what they put up on Facebook or whatever. At the same time, the wider world is generally losing confidence in us. Our government bonds are deemed among the least trustworthy. Our viability, full stop, as an economic partner is in general decline. This has happened so quickly, the worst of it within as little as the last 10 years. I remember the Sun front page in 1992 that sought to warn people of the dangers of voting for Labour under Neil Kinnock. If he wins, will the last person to leave Britain please turn out the lights? That was a joke then, but the joke is on us now. International travellers look at a city like London and warn one another against going there for fear of violence of one sort or another. A place that was once a bastion, a beacon of light, is increasingly a no-go area, except for those arriving in rubber dinghies. The same people pulling in the migrants deliberately are simultaneously intent on making the capital not a beacon of hope, but the capital of crime. My fellow Scots countryman, poet Robert Burns, said, "O would some power the gift to gie us, to see ourselves as others see us." The reputation of the British, of Britishness, was once a source of national pride. It's not the British people that have fallen into disrepute. It's the British state. It's the state we're in. And that's a hell of a state, right enough. I'm Neil Oliver. If you enjoyed this content, please like and subscribe and download the app for GB News from the App Store.